Hi again, it's Carol King, the founder of Custom Homebuilders Solutions, also known as CHS. In this video, it's going to be hopefully a pretty quick video about a recent update. Today is September 29th, 2021, that changes a little bit about the opening of printing checks. I also want to spend my time a little bit on this video to show you how to best set up your browser and your printers for printing the checks so that they will try to fit properly on your actual checks. One thing about being on the web is CHS can produce a PDF of the checks to print, as my ongoing customers know, and it can produce a PDF, but then to give it to you, it has to hand it off from the browser and basically down to your computer, so it suddenly gets out of CHS's control. It's handing it off, and then your printer, your PDF reader, those kinds of things take over, and we can't control that part, but we can give you some tips about it all. So first of all, I have Firefox open right now as my browser, and I am going to suggest strongly that for getting your best fit of your checks is that you use Firefox because of some of the options that it has for you that the Chrome and Microsoft Edge that I'll show you in a little bit do not have. So before we get started, what I want to talk about real quickly is just how something's changed on printing checks. So let's do print or post checks. Go to the screen where it's letting you narrow down the checks to print, which is explained in other videos and help documents. And then on this window, I'm going to put in a check number. But let's get on to what's different. First of all, I'd like you to notice that when I click Print Checks, it's going to open the next window pretty quickly, and it's not going to say that it's preparing the checks yet. So I have done an update to speed up some of all of this stuff so that CHS behind the scenes is not making the PDF ahead of time and causing you to wait right here for it to prepare that PDF. So I'm going to click Print Checks. So what happens now is when you click this, it's just going to open a window that shows you the PDF pretty quickly. Unless you have tons of checks and tons of records and that kind of thing, it might take longer and say working. I just have 2 checks selected to print. So this is what looks a little different to you, is that what it's opening is a temporary PDF of the checks. Now, so I call this a temporary PDF of checks because quite often it might help you to download it and open it with your own reader to really get it to fit best. We design the checks, we make the actual size, test them on the checks, but again I'm going to show you how your browser and your printer can take over and be trying to size those in different ways for you, and we don't want them to size differently than what we designed. So first of all, let's talk about the browsers. I'm in Firefox. In your browser for Firefox, I'd like you to be sure you do a couple of things under setting. And under settings, if you start scrolling down here, you're going to see language, zoom, and you're going to see one called downloads. And in order to get it to quit just saving it in some little arrow like this up behind where you're not sure where it went when you downloaded something, you should say always ask where to save files. This will trigger opening a window. Maybe it will ask you if you want to open your Adobe Reader or what you want to open it with. May or may not, depending on your browser, but in Firefox, if I get this set, always ask where to save files. You will if under applications you tell it that for PDFs, which they call it portable document format, I guess. If you click on this, it doesn't look like it has selections, but it does. And if you click right over here, you can see that it gives you some options. Now I think that it defaults to just save file when you do Firefox. And sometimes if you get a Firefox update, they just change it back to this, which is so annoying. But you need to sort of pay attention. I set mine to say open in Firefox. By setting it that way, it opens a little pop-up window that says open with my reader, with my Acrobat reader. So that works that way, and I like it to be set that way. If it's save file, it's just going to go boom, download it, and it's behind an arrow and you don't even know where it went hardly. So make those 2 settings. You will also notice that there's some tips about doing what I just showed you right up here at the top, suggesting that you might want to do. Now I've been doing some testing, and I think it's possible that if you just print it from here, it will work and it will fit fine for you. But if it's not and it seems to be off, you can have better luck if you're clicking the download icon, and notice how this isn't just suddenly going and sticking it up behind an arrow. It's asking me some things about what to do about it, and that's because I set my Firefox settings to take care of that. So if I say open with Adobe Acrobat, And I am super handed off to my own machine. I have things like File, Save As, and I could save this PDF, etc. And it's opened my own Adobe Acrobat Pro here. But what I'd like to emphasize is when you click the printer icon and a window opens showing you what your printer is, you need to make sure it's the printer you're hooked up to, of course. This window can look different depending on all different printers, so they should have similar things. For example, my printer, when I defaulted into it, it was set to fit. I'd like you to look at this screen just a little bit and see that if I click fit, those checks will move around a little bit, because what that's trying to do is make it the prettiest that it can. We don't want that. We want actual size. We want it to print just like it's been formatted to print. We of course want portrait. You don't want anything shrink to fit. You don't want shrink converted pages, or whatever lingo your particular printer is trying to do to say auto fit or whatever it is. Try to figure out how to make sure that it's actual size. And actual size means this custom scale is to 100%. So that's very important. You should check that stuff before you print to make sure that it fits. I'm not going to print this. I know this fits because I'm going to jump to another browser now. Wanted you to see how it is in Firefox. If you are using Firefox, you don't have to continue to look at the Chrome and the Microsoft Edge with me. So I'm going to go ahead and get my PDF printer shut down and the temporary PDF. And then if I had printed them, I should always use yes, the checks ran okay. Because at this point, CHS, just because you opened a PDF, has no idea whether you printed the checks, whether they printed okay. You've been handed off to your own computer. CHS doesn't know what you've done about them. The most important thing to not do is walk away or go to lunch after you click to print the checks. You need to wait, make sure they printed okay, so that you don't time out while you're gone and come back and this window isn't even open. If it all printed okay, the checks look fine, you need to be sure to say yes, the checks ran okay. Because until this point, CHS has not printed those as checks. They wouldn't show up in a check register. I have had people call and say, I printed the checks, but they're not in the list of checks. And I said, well, did you tell them to post? So now I'm going to say no on this one so that it's cleared out. And I have Chrome open over here. So let's go to post or print the checks. Same thing. It's the same set of books that I have over here, and I'm going to tell it remembers what I typed a minute ago for a check number. Same information here. And if we go to print checks, let's get that one open. But let's take a look at the tools on Chrome. Now their tools on their thing are 3 dots, and you can go to settings. And the one thing I'd like you to make sure of is that you do advanced and that you look for downloads, and that you make sure that you tell it to ask where to save each file before downloading, in case you think you're going to start trying to download the checks to save them to your own PDF reader. So mine is set. It's turned on right here to always ask if I do download. So let's close that, and let's go ahead and open that PDF. Now you'll notice that I am in a different browser because CHS just basically sort of handed off. It gave a shell, but it handed off this PDF stuff to your Chrome browser. Now your tools have changed. If you do a download, it's not going to ask if you want to open it with Adobe Acrobat. It's going to ask where to save it. So you'd have to give it some name, know where you're saving it, browse around, save it, and then somehow open it after that, as far as I can tell, which is a bit of a pain. So if you're using Chrome, you may hopefully just be able to get them to fit from this screen, but let's check out what Chrome is doing with the printer button. So this is a little different because we're in Chrome, and again, CHS is not controlling any of this. But what I want you to be sure of, again, is that you're going to print this actual size. So let's look at more settings. I want you to not overlook this. Notice down here that it's set at custom. They don't have an actual size one, or my printer doesn't with Chrome, but custom and 100% should fit for you. If I select something like fit to printable area, you'll notice this stuff move all around, and so this probably wouldn't fit on my checks. If I fit to paper, it's moving again, so things would get offline. But if I do custom and I make sure that I have 100%, this should be the actual size. And you may have pretty good luck, I think, with just printing with these settings. But don't overlook this. Make sure you have letter, size, and if there's any place to tell it portrait or landscape, you do that. That type of thing. I just want you to understand, about looking for different tools to help you get these things fitted. I'm going to cancel that because I'm not really going to print it, and I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I say do not post as paid. So let's jump over to Microsoft Edge. Now I'm in Microsoft Edge as my browser, not Chrome, not Firefox, and I'm going to do the same thing. Click to post or print checks, continued on through here, give it its check number, and then open the print checks, and let's see what we've got here. Now first of all, let's look at its options and settings in Microsoft Edge. But what I'd like you to do is look at downloads and ask me what to do with each download should be turned on. That will help you a little so that it gives you some control over what's happening. So if I click to open the PDF of this one, you're going to notice we have all different kinds of tools. And we don't even have a download tool, except we do have a save. So you could end up saving the PDF to somewhere and going and opening it in your own reader, which could be a pain. So I'm hoping that if you're using Microsoft Edge and you click the printer icon, that you'll be able to get it set to actual and then print it, and then everything will work just fine without needing to download. So you can see here it's a little different because we're in Microsoft Edge, you know, so everything changes based on browsers. Again, CHS is not controlling this. You are on your own computer. So under more settings is what you want to be very aware of. Now look how this one is defaulting to print to portable area. I don't want that. I don't want it to fit for me. I don't want it to make it pretty for me. I want the actual size. Now watch this screen. Watch how that stuff moves some. This is the one that would fit better if you use the actual size. Now if you're experimenting and not knowing if checks will fit on your page, please don't test by printing like 20 checks on regular checks. Test by printing 1 or 2 on plain paper and hold it up to your checks to see if they are fitting. So that's the difference here over in Microsoft Edge, is that you have a little bit of different settings. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps you get your checks fit correctly, and that you understand the change that I made today a little bit to help open those checks faster, which I hope they do for you. And thank you for watching.